Welcome to FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan. I'm here with Dominic Mauro. That means it's MMA time. Let's talk about last week's pay-per-view card at UFC 137 and the fallout of Penn versus Diaz. We've got some news about BJ Penn. Well, he announced that he's retiring.
Yeah, no, BJ's. He says he's done. He took a pretty bad beating from Nick Diaz last weekend, so he doesn't want to do that anymore for a living, apparently.
Well, do you think that this retirement sticks, or is he going to come back?
I don't know. I mean, he did just take a pretty savage beating, and he's got another member of the family on the way. I don't blame him for wanting to take some time off. He says it's all the time. He wants to take complete break from fighting, but I don't know. I don't picture him just sitting around his many mansions in Hawaii and eating burgers all day and not fighting. Don't get me wrong, I picture him doing that all the time, but I picture him fighting after a while too. So I give it like a year and a half before he comes back.
Well, if he does come back, do you think that he has something left in the tank?
Not at 170. Clearly he cannot compete at 170 anymore. BJ, I know you're not watching, but you did great at 170 back when nobody had any clue what they were doing in MMA, but it's 2011. This is down to a science. Go back to 155. You'll never make 145, I know, but you could, probably, maybe. But go back to 155. You were a monster at 155 right up until that Frankie Edgar guy kind of punched you in the face a lot. But other than that, you're doing great. I think he's still got a few more good fights in him. Just definitely not at 170. I don't want to see him get his ass kicked at 170 anymore. That's
okay. So happy trails to BJ Penn, maybe. And the winner of the night, we have Nick Diaz, who trash-talked his way into a matchup with George St. Pierre.
I mean, that's stunning, really. He just talks enough smack in the cage afterwards and gets booed out of the octagon, and Dana White says, sure, you can totally have whatever you want. I mean, Nick Diaz, he who threw the whole card into upheaval when he no-showed the press conferences, got kicked off the card. Screwed Carlos Condit out of the fight with BJ Penn. And Condit doesn't complain too much because, hey, he gets a shot at the championship, right? And now Carlos Condit gets screwed out of a second fight. That's 2 straight fights he's been screwed out of by Nick Diaz.
So he didn't even fight on the card, yet he comes out the biggest loser of that night.
Oh, poor Condit. I feel sorry. He's got to fight like, I don't know, a Girl Scout or something. Get a big payday, something easy. Or Nick Diaz, take out his frustrations. That might be interesting. But
well, how do you think a fight between Nick Diaz and George St. Pierre turns out?
I think Nick Diaz spends 25 minutes on his back with a Canadian man's elbow in his eye, frankly. Nick Diaz has no takedown defense. He's got good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he's better at defending Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than, applying it to other people. And even if he were good at submitting people like KJ Nunes, who he didn't submit, if you recall, doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one thing. Doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a man on top of you elbowing you in the head constantly is completely different. And Nick Diaz, he's good at the latter, but not so good that he's going to submit George St. Pierre. So I think it's a long, ugly night for Nick Diaz. GSP is going to take the fight to the ground as often as he wants. And I think he's going to want to do it pretty often because, he didn't exactly outstrike BJ Penn. And we just saw what Nick Diaz did to BJ Penn on the feet. So I don't think GSP wants any piece of Nick Diaz on the feet.
Oh, great. So we'll see what happens with that matchup. But let's talk about this weekend's matchup on Saturday. We have UFC 138. And in the first match of the night, we have a snake versus a hippo.
Yes.
We have Cyrille Diabaté versus Anthony Perosh.
Yeah, this is Cyrille Diabaté's 3rd or 4th fight in the UFC. He's an aging French kickboxer, world champion, Muay Thai kickboxer. He's very large. He's 6'6" at 205, so he's really rangy. He's got a really long jab. He knows how to use it effectively. He also likes the really long knees. I mean, he's got huge, just legs that are like 7 feet long, right? So he loves to stuff takedowns. He's good at sprawling for a guy who's really done no wrestling in his life up to this point. He's good at sprawling, and he likes to counter with a knee from nowhere. You guys never see that. Anthony Perosh, he's an Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist from Australia, I'll put it that way. There's no fusion of the schools.
Right.
He's really not got a lot to offer Diabaté on the feet, unfortunately. I mean, he's not a world champion kickboxer, so really what do you say from that? Worse, he's not a good wrestler either, so he's going to try to clinch and drag the fight to the ground, but funny thing about clinching is, you get really close to the guy, and he's just had an opportunity to punch you in the head a bunch of times. So I think Diabaté knocks out Perosh at some point.
Okay, so Dominic's picking the snake over the hippo for the first fight of the night. And then next up, we have Terry Etim versus Eddie Faaloloto.
Yeah, this is Terry Etim's. Well, he's a British fighter, and he loves to. He's actually trying to reverse the trend in grappling stereotypes perpetuated by myself and others, based on Michael Bisping's terrible wrestling. So he's a UFC veteran. He's pretty well rounded. He's got good submission skills. He actually is great at finding submissions in the scramble, working, just not setting them up on the ground, just going for a takedown and just submitting people out of nowhere. A couple years back, he landed one of the few Peruvian neckties in the UFC, which is as amazing as it sounds and as rare as you'd imagine with a name like that. He's still in the middle of the pack, and he's looking for the UFC is looking for a reason to put him against the top lightweights, because they really want to push the sport in England. Mm-hmm. And another English star besides Michael Bisping is always a good idea, because Bisping, not so much. So he's fighting a guy with 4 professional fights, 2 of them in a tiny one-off league in Hawaii I've never heard of. And he's lost both of his fights in the UFC. Eddie Faaloloto, good luck. I don't know who you are.
And he practices some kind of mysterious martial art.
Yeah, I had to look this.
Ever heard of?
I had to look this up on Wikipedia. It's Kaju Kenbo, combining karate, judo, kenpo, and boxing. There are no sources for the Wikipedia article, so Eddie might have made this up.
Yeah, Bruce Lee kind of invented his own martial arts,
Yeah. Eddie Faaloloto, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's a lot cooler sounding,
right?
But who knows? We might be able to add to that pantheon if he scores some crazy upset.
Okay, good luck, Eddie. And then next we have Thiago Alves versus Papy Abedi.
Yeah, this is going to be a rough fight. Thiago Alves is a juggernaut of a kickboxer. He's huge at 170 pounds. I mean, he's missed weight like 3 or 4 times in the last few years. He got banned for using diuretics to try to help him cut weight. I mean, he's a big guy, and he will knee your head off and then punt it into the 3rd row. He's actually got pretty good wrestling for a guy who primarily works the stand-up. He fought for the championship against Georges St. Pierre about a year or 2 ago, and he's been on a little bit of a losing streak since then. So the UFC, I think they're giving him a kind of a softball here. Papy Abedi, he's a Swedish fighter. He's got like 8 fights to his name. He's won all of them, and he's won them all in the first or second round. So he's clearly better than the regional competition he's been fighting. I just don't know if he's ready for the world stage. And even if he were ready for the world stage, Thiago Alves is a terrible part of the world stage to step up against for your first try in the UFC. Thiago Alves is a mean, very mean guy. So best of luck, Papy. I keep saying that, but these are some lopsided fights. I think they want a bunch of knockouts here for the British crowd.
And then the next fight, which you predict might be the fight of the night, we have Brad Pickett versus Renan Barão.
Yeah, Brad Pickett, he's another British fighter. He's primarily a boxer. He's good at submissions too, which, again, where do they find these British guys who know how to wrestle, and why hadn't they found them before? He's got some body shot knockouts, so he mixes up his strikes. He doesn't just, headhunt like a lot of guys do. And he's fighting Renan Barão, who's coming into the weekend on a 26-fight winning streak, which is really impressive, but they're all against absolutely nobody in the backwoods of Brazil. So he's clearly got some good fundamentals if he's never been caught in those 26 fights. He's never made like an elementary mistake. Alternatively, he might be beating up on high school kids. I don't know. So Barão, the one thing I do know about Barão from his last couple fights in the UFC, he's a very aggressive kickboxer. He likes to come forward. And I think we can expect Pickett to try to, pick him apart on the way in. And this fight, I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks. So we'll see. I know who the crowd's going to be rooting for, but I don't know. You can't root for a guy to lose for the first time in 27 fights. So, I'm picking Barão for this one.
Okay. And then in the main event of the night, we have Chris Leben versus Mark Muñoz.
Yeah, Chris Leben is a veteran of the UFC. This is going to be his 19th fight in the octagon. He's a sloppy, brawling striker. He doesn't have a lot of defense. In fact, he's got practically no defense. His one defense is that he's got a crazy chin, and he tends to knock people out after he's been hammered with some crazy shots and he's probably out on his feet. He's a fan favorite for, taking as good as he gets, or taking as good as he gives.
So he's just getting warmed up when he gets hit, huh?
Exactly. Getting knocked out? Please, I did that before breakfast. So Muñoz, on the other hand, he's a champion collegiate wrestler, national champion, Division I, very strong wrestler, very strong ground and pound. He's been working on his striking. He got outstruck by Demian Maia in his last fight, which isn't exactly the hallmark of a great striker. Demian Maia, pretty much only grapples day in and day out. So Muñoz, he doesn't need to have great striking to light up Chris Leben, but he needs to not get punched in the face by Chris Leben, because Leben's a very powerful striker. Muñoz wants to put this fight on the ground and pound Leben out, because, well, that's just what he tries to do to everybody.
And the winner of this fight gets to face Anderson Silva?
Well, they haven't said that, but these guys are going to put themselves at the very top of the division, and let's face it, Anderson Silva has cleaned out the damn division a couple of times over at this point. So, yeah, whoever wins this fight, I think there's a really good chance that they end up on the sacrificial altar in front of Anderson Silva. So, my advice to these guys, take a dive. Don't do it. Don't do it. So it's going to be an entertaining fight, one way or the other, and it's the first 5-round non-title fight in UFC history. Really? So hopefully it's good, because we've got 25 minutes of it.
Right. So tune in and witness history, I guess.
Yeah, that's the tagline. This fight's actually going to be on tape delay because it's from England, so this isn't even a pay-per-view. You don't have anything to do on Saturday night.
Yeah.
It's on Spike.
And if you don't have anything to do Sunday morning, you can tune in at 7:30 to watch Fedor Emelianenko.
Fedor Emelianenko just announced that his fight against Jeff Monson, November 20th, 7:30 in the morning. That's a Sunday.
Mark that down on your calendar.
Oh yeah, folks. Mark your calendars. I know, I'm waking up at 7:30 in the morning. And it's a pay-per-view live from Russia. So it's $30 for the privilege of waking up at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday to watch washed up, greatest mixed martial artist of all time fights an anarchist with a Powerpuff Girls tattoo on his shoulder. You can't make this up. Ideally Fedor cleans this guy's clock and he gets on to, more Greenwich Mean Time-esque fights. I don't know. I guess the one thing you can say about 7:30 in the morning is that you avoid all the football on Sundays.
Actually, we have to disagree with you there. I think the best football analyst show, NFL Countdown, starts at 7:30 on Sunday morning, so he's not even avoiding football.
Well, that's just, all right. So Fedor needed a new promoter years ago, but now he's not even avoiding football anymore. Fedor, what are you doing?
So, but if you happen to be in Russia, maybe you can buy a ticket to watch a legend.
Oh yeah, I'm sure tickets are going for pretty cheap, because he's not the draw he used to be. So either way, a lot of mixed martial arts coming up in the next few weeks, and next weekend we've got Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos. Weekend after that, it's Henderson versus Shogun. Just huge fights all month, and then New Year's Eve show, Alistair Overeem, Brock Lesnar. Crazy amount of fights coming up.
All right, so we got an action-packed UFC winter coming up, so keep on tuning in to FCNYC. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Dominic. Take care, everybody.